Mr. President, Madam Chancellor, Mr. Governor, and all the distinguished alumnus. It's a very big honor for me to be here. It was 1974. It was 1974. In fact, in 3 short years from 1974, Governor Hunt, Jim Hunt, would be serving his first of 4 terms as governor of North Carolina. I was a senior at Ragsdale High School in Jamestown, North Carolina. My brother Phil was an incoming freshman here in the class of 1974, right here at Carolina. A buddy of mine from high school gave me a ride to Carolina to visit my brother. He dropped me off on Franklin Street. I proceeded to get into my brother's 1972 128 Fiat. I told him to turn on the air conditioner. It was hot. He said, "Brother, first, this car doesn't have air conditioner. And the second, we're in Chapel Hill. We roll down the windows here and enjoy the fresh air." We proceeded to drive and walk around the campus, and he showed me Carmichael, where my hero growing up, Charlie Scott, wearing number 33, had played. Scott was the first African-American basketball player, sadly, very late, welcomed to the ACC. We visited the planetarium and watched the stars. We took pictures right across the street here of the old well and the Davy Poplar, of which we celebrate the history today. We walked down Franklin Street and enjoyed the restaurants and, yes, a few bars. The only thing that ruined the day was when we visited his freshman dorm, Hinton James. Whew. I think that dorm looks just the same today as it did back in 1974. I was in awe, however. This campus was the most beautiful university I'd ever visited. It was an environment that was second to none. It was a place I respected and a place I wanted to return to and did return to many times throughout my life. And today, as I return as the 74th governor of North Carolina, I return with the same awe and respect for this campus as I did back in 1974. Chapel Hill is the pinnacle. It is the benchmark for all of education in North Carolina. It is the place where the brightest from across the state, the nation, and the world come to learn. It is where the best of the best come to fulfill their potential. It is where our future scientists, lawyers, teachers, inventors, entrepreneurs, and leaders formulate their initial dreams and visions. It is the job of this governor and of your incredible new chancellor and each one of you to strengthen, reform, and adapt the UNC brand and heritage to the ever-changing competitive environment of the 21st century. Yet both your chancellor and I, who came in during very similar time periods, first had to face short-term obstacles that we had to fix and reform. As governor, I inherited the 5th highest unemployment rate in the country, a debt of more than $2.5 billion owed to the federal government for unemployment insurance, a $530 million misforecast for Medicaid, and I also had to deal with teachers who sadly had not had a decent pay raise for over 5 years, and also an empty rainy day reserve account that needed desperate replenishment. Due to some very tough decisions that my administration and others had to take during the past year and a half, these problems are now being resolved. We've had one of the largest drops in unemployment in the country. We've paid down most of our debt. We now have, for the first time, Dr. Roper, a surplus in Medicaid, but many, many more challenges to go ahead. We've replenished our reserve accounts, and yes, teachers, K through 12 teachers, have a substantial pay raise for the first time in many years. Now we all have to focus on long-term strategies to fulfill our state's potential in areas like healthcare, commerce, transportation, and of course, education. Your new chancellor also inherited the consequences of pockets of bad policy and frankly, poor oversight that did not meet the standards or ethics of this great university. She has done an excellent job in listening, taking charge, and making much needed change. And one shining example is working directly with the faculty members here in the front rows to end great inflation. This new policy attains the goal of our state motto, esse quam videre, to be rather than to seem. Honest grading should now be the standard on all of our state campuses, with Chapel Hill again showing the positive way for the future. Before we finalize our visions for our universities, we must first come to an agreement as to what the purpose and function of our universities and our university is and what it should not be. First, we should all demand that our universities are allowed to be universities. We should not support the continued use of limited public resources for remedial coursework. We should only accept students ready for the collegiate level, especially here at Chapel Hill. We must invest in the best that are ready for college academics at the time of high school graduation. High school graduates who do not learn at the same pace, which happened to me coming out of high school, need to be offered other, more efficient and targeted options to give them the same opportunity of success in the future, including right here at Carolina. Our universities should also not be used to indoctrinate our students to become, yes, liberals or conservatives, but should teach a diversity of opinions which allow our future leaders to decide for themselves. We can also no longer afford to have our universities be used as an illicit drug and alcohol playground that leads to substance abuse, danger, and harm for the next generation. This rite of passage, which my generation, and yes, even myself, sadly helped participate in and initiate when I was much younger, continues to inflict tragedy on students and families and also causes serious long-term health and addiction consequences on our communities and our families. We must immediately educate and help students who are dealing with addiction. Chancellor Folt, I want to personally thank you for allowing new initiatives of education, counseling, and enforcement on your campus that will combat this very, very serious issue of substance abuse. Let me be frank about another sensitive rite of passage. Although athletic programs are an important part of campus life and culture, we must follow the advice of Dr. William Friday, as quoted by Professor Hodding Carter at Dr. Friday's memorial service right here in this beautiful auditorium. The quote was the following: "People do not want their lifetime measured by how much their football team won or lost. There is something valuable they want measured on their intellectual tombstone when the time comes, and it will come." End of quote. Dr. Friday said this days before he passed away. He was right then, and his words still ring today for all of our universities. So what should the intellectual purpose of our universities be, and what return should they generate to justify the public's investment of approximately $22,000 per student per academic year here at Chapel Hill and other great campuses throughout the state? First, and I totally agree with the introduction, our universities must continue to be an environment where our students can exercise their brains and be free to think, explore, solve problems, adapt, and innovate. Regardless of their major, we must teach knowledge that is essential for a free person to actively participate in civic, professional, and family life. This is the definition of liberal arts: history, language, literature, religion, philosophy, the sciences, mathematics, business, and civics. Our students must continue to develop and build their intellectual capacity for logic and judgment. Chapel Hill must continue to provide the environment and requirements to fulfill this important mission. This knowledge, however, is not the only criteria that must be attained for the monetary investment made by students, parents, and taxpayers. To ensure we get a return on our investment, and more importantly, to ensure that no more students at any of our universities graduate with a huge debt and no job comparable to their investment. Universities must continue to help decrease the job gap by honing in on skills and subjects employers need while also stimulating a student's passion and interest. My own opportunities after Ragsdale High School were enhanced when I not only obtained a BA in political science at Catawba College, but a North Carolina teaching certification that helped my marketability to get a job right out of college. Let's be honest about the skills gap in our nation and our state. First, we must face up to the degree that a job skills gap does exist. Earlier this year, our Commerce Department surveyed nearly 800 North Carolina businesses. 40% of those businesses said the lack of experience, lack of skills, and education credentials were the biggest obstacles to hiring talent and workers. To compensate, some were increasing overtime for existing employees, doubling up on jobs, changing job duties, or simply not filling critical jobs that we need in this great state. My friends, these findings are a wake-up call. If employers in North Carolina cannot find qualified graduates and workers to meet their market needs and their demands, they have told me they will move elsewhere, and everyone will lose: students, taxpayers, and frankly, the future of education funding. And that is unacceptable. We must encourage and reward those universities that place more students in high-demand fields, and universities and students must quickly adapt to the ever-changing market movements and demands on public dollars. Now, we're almost there, but there's one important ingredient that for the past 50 years and next century must continue to be a major part of this university and this university system, and that is innovation and research. Innovation is the fuel of the modern American economy. Between 1/3 and 1/2 of U.S. economic growth comes from the products, services, and practices spawned by innovation. Innovation lives right here at UNC-Chapel Hill, because at its core, innovation is nothing more than the application of creativity, science, and technology. We have the ingredients to grow North Carolina's economy, particularly in the high-tech sector. North Carolina is above the national average in terms of academic research and development dollars. However, we must be honest, the state is below the national average in the percentage of its businesses in the high-tech sector. To address this, I recently convened an Innovation to Jobs Working Group, and here are the 3 challenges they communicated to me just last week at the governor's mansion. First, translation. There's insufficient development and/or dissemination of university-based structure and practices for technology commercialization. Second, capitalization. There's insufficient funding for technology, proof of concept, validation, IP protection, commercialization, early and mid-stage development, production, and business expansion. And third, operation. There's an insufficient number and utilization of seasoned, mature business professionals to run startups and guide companies through growth and expansion. This same group, however, working with these universities' leaders, are coming up with specific recommendations on how we can deal with each of these 3 things. My goal for North Carolina, to follow some of the visionary leadership of my predecessors, is for North Carolina to become the 3rd vertex of what I call America's innovation triangle. On one point of this 2 vertices of research is the Silicon Valley in California. Another portion of this triangle is the Boston, New York area. I want North Carolina to be the 3rd vertex in this triangle. We have the talent, we have the universities, we have the entrepreneurs, and we can make this happen because we also have the competitive advantage. And we've got a team that's going to make this happen, and this university is going to make sure we're a major part of that team and we're a successful part of this national innovation triangle. Now, to make that happen, we can't do it here at Chapel Hill alone. We need to become teammates, yes, with even some of our athletic rivals. And that includes Wake Forest, NC State, and yes, even Duke. We must share the talent, the resources, and the innovation. Now, our state faces significant challenges, but I'm confident North Carolina will not only meet these challenges, but thrive because of people like Zach Clayton. In fact, I met Zach just last week at the governor's mansion about a week ago. He is a graduate at the University of North Carolina right here at Chapel Hill, and as an undergrad, he started his own web and mobile application development company. Upon graduation, he went on to found and serve as CEO of a data-driven digital marketing company. That's 2 companies that he created by the time he was 25 years old. This is a Carolina graduate that was taught the basics and the skills and understands the type of innovation that will fuel North Carolina's future economic growth. And just this morning on my iPad, I read about Tom Meyer, Director of Energy Frontier Research Center for Solar Fuels. He just received a $1 million prize from the country of Israel, the state of Israel. I'd like to congratulate this distinguished professor. As an institution, especially with your new leadership, I am so confident that UNC-Chapel Hill will respond to the institutional challenges of lowering costs for our students, using technology to distribute education more efficiently, and digitally expanding the campus boundaries to rural North Carolina, which is our greatest challenge in this state at this point in time. I'm confident that the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill will be at the forefront of the new paradigm in which universities are judged by the qualitative outcomes produced by their students and not necessarily just by the number of students who are enrolled. You know, in 1984, I was a basketball referee, and I refereed an ACC All-Star game. And I called traveling on the greatest basketball player ever to put on a pair of tennis shoes. What do you think his name was? Of course, it was Michael Jordan, a UNC graduate. When I made the traveling call, I got a few boos. It was a tough call and an unpopular call, but it was the right call. He traveled. I hate to say it, he traveled. He moved his pivot foot. All the leaders and future leaders in this auditorium must continue to make the tough calls and decisions to ensure that future generations can fulfill their potential for North Carolina. I'm confident that all of us will. And when I leave this campus today, I will continue to be in awe and show total respect and be proud of this great university and its history. As much as I was proud and in awe of it when I toured this great campus in 1974. And when I leave this campus, I'll take the same advice that my brother gave to me over 40 years ago. As I get into the governor's vehicle with security now, I will make sure that we don't turn on the heat or the air conditioner today. I will roll down the windows, and I will take in the beauty, and I will enjoy the fresh air of Chapel Hill. It is our university, it is your university, it is the best university that's important for our future. May God continue to bless this great university, and may God continue to bless the great people of this state of North Carolina. Thank you very much for this honor. Thank you very much.